Hi guys, welcome back to Nyx Reads. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to subscribe if you love watching bookish content and hit that notification bell if you want to know that there's a new video for me, because I'm posting just a bit more irregularly these days. I figured you can soak up the last bits of sunshine with me before the summer officially ends. So we're on my terrace, and no, this is not an ad for Vape Out the Grill, so bear with me if you can hear some cars and street noises in the background. Let's talk about the book series that I will not finish reading for one reason or the other. There's 4 series that I want to mention to you in the end of this video because I am still on the fence and I'd really like your opinion. You can write me a comment in the comment section and let me know if you think I should keep reading or not. This is in no particular order, and please don't be surprised if I can't give you a proper plot summary for these books because they didn't leave a very good impression or big impression on me, which is why they're on this list. The first one is Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. I enjoyed this. I think I gave it 4 stars. This is a comedy mystery book where a woman who really wants to be an author sits in a cafe and tells her, I think, agent about this crazy way of how she wants to get away with killing someone. Somebody overhears it, and not knowing that she's an aspiring author and she's just talking about a story, thinks that she's a hit woman for hire. So they hire her to make somebody go away, and things go from there. She in the end enlists the help of her babysitter to help her, and it's just kind of like an adventurous story. I kind of forgot that I read this book, and I've seen reviews since of the following books and they're just okay, but nobody that I watch is giving them 5 stars. And at this point I think we're something like 4 books in, so I just really don't feel like committing to the series, so I'll just make some room to pick up another mystery series that I might actually really love. The next one is a bit more controversial just because it was so hyped up, so many good reviews. It's Jade City by Fonda. This is an urban fantasy story about rivaling clans and the power that jade can give you, because in this story if you wear jade it gives you basically magical powers. I thought that some of the characters were interesting, but the rivalry and this whole feud just didn't grip me. There was something about the story or the writing, honestly can't remember, that just didn't really grip me. I wasn't very engaged. I found it in the end that it was too long. So I don't think this is for me. I know that a lot of people absolutely love the story and get so emotionally invested, but that is just not the way that I felt when I read this. Then we have a thriller. It's The Sanatorium by Pearse. I didn't even know that this is a series. I thought this was a standalone, but I guess there's more stories coming out now with the same detective. This was a Reese's Witherspoon, I think, book club pick, and I've learned since then. I never realized how busy and loud the city is. I've learned since then that thriller picks from that book club specifically usually are a flop for me. I gave this, I think, a 1-star review. I had the worst time. I just remember thinking that the plot and the clues were just so childish and just not very well developed, kind of dumb. Yeah, as you can hear, didn't have a very good time with this. I thought it was kind of ridiculous, so not continuing this. Next is another best-selling book. It's The Friend Zone by Ahdieh Jimenez. I think that this you can technically read as a standalone. Romance is tricky for me. I know now that my perfect romance is one that is funny, spicy, but also has fantasy elements in it, because this way I don't have to take it so seriously. I don't eye it so critically. And this one is a realistic romance that is, I think, a little bit spicy, but it also has some pretty heavy topics in there. And that mixed together just, yeah, didn't really work for me. But this is more personal taste. I know that a lot of people really love this author and this book. A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I listened to this mammoth of a book. It was a lot of hours. I was so excited to pick this up because I picked it up in fall. This is a book about a witch I can't remember if she knows from the beginning that she's a witch or she just discovers that she comes from a line of witches. Anyways, it's kind of like dark academia because she works at a university and then she also starts dating a vampire. I thought this was going to be really good, but I ended up being so bored out of my mind. There were very little things happening. It's a very slow moving book, which I guess for dark academia readers, if you're really into that genre, you shouldn't mind that. But to me, it was a lot of nothingness and then just a lot of yoga for some reasons. Like they were just doing like their hobbies a lot. I did start the series adaptation because I love the actress that plays our main character. Forgot her name. The actress's name though is Teresa Palmer. And even the show, I think I watched 1 or 2 episodes, so bored, didn't continue. I think the running theme of this video is it's just not for me. Next is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. One of my favorite booktubers highly recommended this fantasy series and I was so excited to pick it up once again. But what I remember is that so the main character lived at this convent. I forgot the rest. And there would always be people coming to the convent. Something would happen, then they leave, and then somebody else would come to the convent. Something would happen and then they leave. It was really boring to me. It didn't grip me. Wasn't interested in the world. I honestly don't remember any of the plot points besides what I just told you, so pass. Next Year in Havana by Chanel Cleeton. This is a mix of historical fiction and romance. It's about it's multiple timelines from this Cuban family that fled Havana, moved to the US, and they're always hoping to come back to Cuba. That's why it's Next Year in Havana. This is about a woman trying to find the roots of her family, and at the same time there's some romance in there. Didn't leave a very big impression, didn't love it, but what I will say is that I listened to this audiobook and I absolutely love the narrator. The narrator's name is Kyla Garcia, and she's also the person who dubbed, I forgot the name, one of the main characters from Cable Girls, the Netflix original from Spain. I love her voice, love listening to her, so that was great. But other than that, can barely remember the story and don't really need to continue. The Duke and I, it's Bridgerton #1 by Julia Quinn. I listened to this on a long road trip with my boyfriend and I believe he ended up giving it a higher rating than I did. It's just not for me. This is too deep into historical romance. It's just not my genre. I love the Netflix adaptation. I also love the spin-off, Queen Charlotte. For some reason, season 3 of Bridgerton, the one with Penny and Colin, there was something that felt so off about that season. I'm very excited for the new season to come out, but in this case, I'm just gonna stick to the TV show because I genuinely enjoy it. I'm not gonna read the books. Then we have The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski. Love the Netflix show once again. Very curious to see how the new season's gonna be like because they replaced Henry Cavill with Liam Miley's ex-husband, not Neeson, Hemsworth. But the book, I think it didn't age very well either. So I remember this one scene where the author was making fun of, I think, a 12 or 14-year-old's shaped boobs, and there I was just like, ugh, don't know. There's some interesting mixes into the story where fairy tale lore is mixed in, so that's interesting, but I'm just gonna stick to the Netflix show. Didn't love it, won't bother reading on. Then we have When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. This one I actually enjoyed. It is a YA novel about 2 kids going to college, trying to figure out their life, falling in love. I enjoyed this fine. I think I give it something like 4 stars. It's just that I'm not really reading YA anymore. The only time I will read YA is either when it's by Neil Shusterman. So that's why it's just not for me. I don't, at this point, really need to read love stories of teenagers, except that I'm watching The Summer I Turned Pretty like everybody else. Last night's episode was crazy, by the way. It was the one that ended on the beach with Conrad and Belly. Then we have The Shining by Stephen King. My thing with Stephen King is that I love his premises. Every time I read what one of his books is about, I'm like, wow, how does this man come up with so many endless ideas? He keeps topping himself, and it's something that I would totally read, but I just know that the writing is not for me. That's how it feels like to me. They're always too long and to me feels like they need heavy editing. All that is left to me is to watch the movie adaptation with Jack Nicholson. Apparently it's amazing. I might read Carrie at some point because I started it and never really finished it. So okay, Carrie might be my last Stephen King book, except it's not fiction. Then we have The Magicians by Lev Grossman. This was a very funky wizarding school kind of book mixed with kind of urban fantasy too, because it takes place in the real world in a way. Very dark academia vibes, very weird people, weird relationships, indie people getting together that have magic powers, that were always the outsiders and now they have magic. That's how it felt like, how everybody behaved from what I remember. It was just not for me. But if I think you loved Bunny by Mona Awad, I think you would really like The Magicians. Just putting it out there. The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. This is a short novel, a fantasy book about a thief that travels across the country to something. I forgot. As you can see, this didn't leave a very big impression. I know that some people really cherish this series, but yeah, didn't particularly love it. The Girl from Everywhere by Heidi Heilig. I wanted to DNF this so bad. I just should have, because I think at some point I started like skimming through pages with barely even reading them. So the premise of this sounded very cool because I think it takes place in Hawaii. It has something to do with time travel and a pirate ship. But the writing was also not for me because I remember being constantly confused in the beginning when I was still actually reading about what was happening and what characters were in the scene. Yeah, didn't work for me. Next is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This is a book that when I think first started watching BookTube, everybody and their mother was raving about and reading. This is a YA retelling of Sherazad, and as I mentioned, just not into YA anymore, and the book was so-so. Don't need to continue. Dumplin by Julie Murphy. I read the book and I also watched the movie, and for both I can barely remember what really happened. And again, it's YA, so just nothing I really want to keep reading. Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Wow, this was so popular back in the days. This is set in a fantasy world about a city that suddenly is erased from everybody's memory as if it never existed, but then the scholar finds evidence that it was once there. I thought it was interesting, but I expected, I think, a crazier, even bigger twist just because everybody was so secretive about this plot and the story and hyped it up so much. So I liked it fine, didn't love it. Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a YA series that I liked the premise of because it's very escape roomy. It's like a game to win an inheritance, but then there's also a love triangle, so definitely your fair share of YA tropes. I read 3 books actually, and I thought the 3rd book is the last. Turns out it's not, and at that point I just said, okay, never mind. I don't want to continue anymore, don't care anymore. It was fun while reading it, but I could barely remember. I actually cannot remember what the conclusion is at all. So that's not a good sign. Lastly, Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. I just talked about this. It's a very beloved fantasy heist series for adults, and this was just entirely too wordy for me. I did not love the writing style. It made me not feel any attachment to the story or the characters, so giving up on this. Lastly, we have the 4-book series that I'm very much on the fence about. So please let me know in the comments what you think if you have read any of these. I would really appreciate your input. The first one is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Millennium Trilogy by Stieg Larsson. It makes sense that the original Swedish title of this book is Men Who Hate Women. Yeah. So this is a thriller. that I thought it's gonna be super fast paced, but it was so slow, and it was long, and I was bored a lot of the times. I felt like nothing was happening, and I felt like I was cheated out of a thriller. I bought the whole set, the trilogy, at I think a library sale or from rebuy, and it was something like €2.95 for all 3 books. So I already have the next 2. If I didn't own them, I would definitely not read on, but now I'm like, maybe I should just read them. Does it get better? The movie with Daniel Craig is actually quite good, but the book, not so exciting. Then we have Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Everybody raves about this book and talks about it as if it's one of the best fantasy books out there. And I disagree. I felt like I read something entirely different than anybody else. In fact, I love Elantris, this like the standalone book, although now I think it's a duology, but it used to be a standalone book that I read before Mistborn, leading up to this, to get introduced to the Sanderson world, that I loved so much. But for some reason, Mistborn, I was kind of bored, and I was not very engaged, not very sucked in. I would have to read an extensive summary before I started the next book, because I forgot basically all the details of this book. So I don't know, should I just skip the Mistborn trilogy and go to, is it Stormlight Archives? It's the other series that people really rave about. What do I do? Then we have The Chemistry of Death by Simon Beckett. This is for a thriller series by a UK author. I think I read something like 5 books in this series now. I still think that the first in this series can be read as a standalone. It is one of the best thrillers. I love it so much. It's very graphic, but it's really fast-paced and page-turnery, and it's so interesting because we read from the perspective of an anthropologist, not just a detective. So that makes it very unique. There's a lot of flies, as you can imagine, involved. Flies and what are those little worms called? Maggots. My problem is that the last 2 books were kind of not that great that I read in this series, so I don't know if the ones afterwards pick back up. Okay, I don't know. What are the chances that maybe one of you guys read the series? I hope. Lastly, we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is a fantasy book that I buddy read with Stuart, which was super fun. It's just that I haven't found myself thinking about this book at all, and I think I enjoyed it, but I also didn't love it. I had my fair share of criticism for it, so I'm not sure. Is it worth it? If the second book is so much better than the first one, I could be persuaded to read it, but if it's just as good or maybe slightly worse, then maybe not. That was all the books I wanted to talk to you guys about. Please do leave a comment with your thoughts. I would really appreciate some input. And if you just want to let me know that you're still watching, why don't you leave me a water bottle emoji. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.